Well, for me, the first day of the Australian Open started exactly the same as it did in 2017. I fished the Iron Cove Bridge, first cast with an atomic crankbait, and it's fish on. The second fish of the morning came off one of the other pylons there, and it's on just as the current started running in on the upcurrent side, bouncing that crankbait across the concrete. And of course, all of the fish are being added into the Track My Fish app, so we can see a live scoreboard. I moved out of that Iron Cove Bridge area and then up to Balmain, where I caught this fish on a moored boat using the trusty old cranker crab. I run a couple of crank crab rods. One of them's 8'6" with 5 pounds straight through, but this rod, it's 7'8", and it's got 2 and 3 pound I run straight through on it. So I had to take it pretty easy on the fish. You don't want to bully them in, but around moored boats, there's not that much structure for them to break you off on. This wasn't a huge fish, but it was on one of those suicide casts where you've got to be lucky for the fish to swim straight out, and that's exactly what it did. After those structure spots, it was a matter of seeing where the wind was blowing on this sort of overcast day and then just making up new spots. I probably hadn't fished this point in the Lane Cove River for years, but it looked good. The wind was blowing on it, picked up an Ecogearaqua, just rigged on the unweighted with the worm hook, and this is what happened. I fish my Ecogearaquas and I use the white ones so that I can see them in the clear water on braided line and leader, probably about a 5 pound Chinu Harris leader, and this one here is on some 4 pound Berkeley nano fillers braid. It lets you set that hook into the fish's mouth, lets me see what's going on, and of course lets you pole them in if they're not that big. First cast of the aqua in the Lane Cove and out here. Now, one of the disadvantages of the single worm hook with aqua is when you hook them in the side of the mouth and they always run sideways one way or the other. They don't shake their head and this can happen to you. Now, as the tide got up and up, these rubbly spots in between the structure were what was holding the fish. This aqua thrown into the rubble spot, winded out a few casts, let it sink, and bang, the bream jumps on. Now, you don't see this every day when you're fishing. It's a leather jacket, beached himself on the rocks while chasing something and, of course, had to rescue him. Now, as the tide got up, the fish tended to bite a little bit better, but my luck went a bit downhill, and this is the second fish that took an Ecogearaqua for the day. And this bream was so keen, it hit it about 6 foot from the boat. Now, in the years where I've won the Australian Open, everything tends to go right, but this day was going downhill pretty quickly. Check this fish out on a crankbait. With just one rock in the water, it found it. So when things go wrong, they go really wrong. Check out what happens when I try to get this crankbait back off a snag. And backed up a couple of pontoons later with another crab donated to the locals. Now, I like to think that I don't get rattled and frustrated too easily, but this was getting beyond a joke. A couple of pontoons later, a crankbait straight up the middle, still ends in disaster. Now, you'd think a happy ending would have a victory right at the end. And we did, we finally got a fish in. Yep, it was one of those bloody big Sydney Harbour whiting, and at the end of the day, I scraped up nearly 2.5 kilos, enough for virtually last place. That leaves you a lot of work to do in the next couple of days.